cruel and unnecessary. That's how Pope John Paul II described the death penalty during his pastoral visit to the Archdiocese of St. Louis. Our Holy Father knows that all of us long for peace and justice, especially in the face of today's social problems. But, tragically, many people in our time and in our country advocate violent solutions to social problems. Abortions to deal with problem pregnancies, euthanasia or assisted suicide to cope with illness and aging, and an increasing reliance on the death penalty to combat crime. This video asks you to consider the last issue, capital punishment, the death penalty, which a number of states have reestablished in recent years. Many Americans, including many Catholics, support the death penalty out of an understandable fear of crime. To them it seems basic justice to punish criminals with the same act they committed on innocent victims. But we are Christians called by Christ to have reverence for all human life, which must never be taken away even in the case of someone who has done great evil. I have written to you about the morality of capital punishment in my pastoral letter, In the Name of Mercy and Justice. In this program, you will hear from thoughtful, committed Catholics who also speak out against the death penalty, primarily because they defend life, but also because they see capital punishment as harming society rather than protecting it.
They were murdered in their home in Montana. They just bought a house out there. My son John and his wife Nancy.
My daughter Julie Marie was killed in the Oklahoma City bombing.
When Abdul got out of the car, this young man chased him and shot him in the back of the head.
These are the voices of parents whose children have been murdered. Yet they do not seek vengeance. Their Catholic faith, their belief that only God can give and take life, have led them to speak out against capital punishment, even for their children's killers.
As it turns out, it was the 18-year-old son of the people they'd bought the house from. He was a fundamentalist Christian, had grown up in Christian schools. He was in a Quaker college when he started talking about, I think I dreamed about killing people, and I think one day I did it. And he did confess, you know. And at that point we knew that he was facing the death penalty because in Montana they had reestablished, it was one of the states that had reestablished the death penalty. By that time, by the time he confessed, which was 4 months later, December 7th of 1993, I knew, and my children knew, that we did not want the death penalty, not for an 18-year-old or not for anybody.
I remember one time when I was taking Julie from Milwaukee to Oklahoma City, we heard a news story on the radio about an execution that had happened in Texas the night before. Julie's reaction to that was, "My God, Dad, that makes me angry," because all that does is they're teaching hate to their children in Texas, and it has no social redeeming value. After Julie was killed, that kept echoing and echoing and echoing in my head.
I did not want to see the young man who murdered my son put to death. I did not know he was an orphan or at least abandoned, so my thinking is such that he's someone's child. To take his life the way he took my son's life, with the pain that I was experiencing, I would not want to know that any other family would have to experience the pain. Whether it's done by the legal system or done by the street mob.
These parents affirm the teachings of Pope John Paul II, who spoke out against capital punishment in his pastoral visit to the Archdiocese of St. Louis.
The new evangelization calls for followers of Christ who are unconditionally pro-life. Who will proclaim, celebrate, and serve the gospel of life in every situation. A sign of hope is the increasing recognition that the dignity of human life must never be taken away, even in the case of someone who has done great evil. modern society has the means of protecting itself without definitively denying criminals the chance to reform. I renew the appeal I made most recently at Christmas for a consensus to end the death penalty, which is both cruel and unnecessary.
Many Catholics are working to end capital punishment in America. Kevin Doyle is a New York attorney who has defended many capital cases. As a Catholic with a strong pro-life position, he agrees that the death penalty perpetuates a cycle of violence in our culture.
I don't think you can mistake the link, the pro-life link that that underwrites concerns both for the unborn and for the criminally condemned. I think that the Holy Father is right that we are in danger of becoming a culture of death. I think that's true in a variety of ways with respect to the levels of economic inequality that we tolerate, with respect to the that we now talk about euthanasia as if it's a viable option, the fact that abortion is treated simply as turning the clock back on unwanted pregnancy, which of course is a very sympathetic notion, but it doesn't comport with the moral reality. And unfortunately with the death penalty, now we've had the death penalty for a long time, my fear is that the death penalty currently represents something of a social hygiene approach to the problems of crime and violence. I think that rather than deal with root causes, inequality and such, we would just rather blot these people off the face of the earth. And I think consistent with that, there's not terrible care taken in most places about making sure that the convictions are valid. There's not great care taken concerning weeding out racial prejudice. So there's certainly a link between the issue of abortion and the death penalty.
Antoinette Bosco, whose son and daughter-in-law were murdered, wrote of her experiences in The Pummeled Heart, Finding Peace Through Pain. Now she works with the families of murder victims and sees how difficult it is, even for people of faith, to get beyond their anger and grief.
I wish I really could understand it better, especially now that the Pope is very clearly saying that we must be a culture of life. We've been too much a culture of death. And I know I come from Connecticut, and all the bishops in Connecticut have publicly written their opposition to the death penalty. And yet, somebody told me recently that something like 60% of Catholics are for the death penalty. How can you really be a follower of Christ and be for unnatural death? I can't understand that. Why people feel that way is because we have this idea that the way to fight crime is to be hard, really hard, and the way to be hard is to say, you kill somebody, you're going to get killed. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think that we should go back to the Old Testament where the Lord says, do not harden your hearts. I think there's a hardness that has developed in which people feel that in order to fight crime, we have to, well, in a sense, the way I look at it, we have to be criminals to fight crime. Because I don't think that you can sanitize killing anybody. You know, you can't say, well, the Justice Department says so, you know, the lawyers say, the judges say it's legal, you know. You can't sprinkle holy water on killing somebody.